Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's webinar. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope you are all well. I hope you are having a good week so far. Please do let me know in the chat if you can all hear me properly, and let me know how you are doing. It is lovely to see you. Bonjour et bienvenue à ce webinaire ouvert à tous. Avant de commencer, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas, je m'appelle Cécilia. Je suis une professeure d'anglais natif et le Cercle des Langues, c'est une école d'anglais en ligne pour les adultes. Nous proposons des formations d'anglais sur mesure en fonction de vos objectifs, de votre niveau et de votre budget. Et la bonne nouvelle, c'est que nos formations sont finançables par CPR. So, hello everyone in the chat. Thank you so much for saying hello. I will continue in English now so we can start the webinar. So today we are going to be talking about a very topical subject. It's very relevant for the current times. Perhaps this was something you had never heard of or you had never done before the pandemic. But of course, now so many people have had to work remotely or work from home. It has become very, very normal. But this does not mean that it's not still challenging. There are some quite unique challenges presented by working from home, remote work. For instance, communication is a bit more difficult. You're not just sat in an office with your colleagues. You need to communicate online somehow. It's harder to build relationships. Of course, you're not having lunch with your colleagues. You're not just seeing them around. That's a little bit harder as well. It can be hard to manage a team when everyone is in different places. It makes it more difficult to keep track of what everyone is doing. And finally, it can be hard to focus as well and keep yourself motivated by yourself at home. So please let me know in the chat from your experiences of remote working. What are the particular challenges you have faced? Are there certain things about remote working that you find really difficult? And so today we're going to have a look at some vocabulary and expressions related to this very relevant topic. Our webinar is going to be split into 3 parts. So in part 1, we will be looking at participating in online meetings. In part 2, we will be looking at staying organized remotely. And in part 3, we will be looking at managing team building online. So let's get started. So, of course, meetings are a daily part of life at work for many people. If you work in a team, if you work on a collaborative project, then you need to have meetings to be able to share your ideas and share your progress. But when you are not in the same room, you need to find another way to have these meetings. So I'm sure many of you have taken part in online meetings already. So these online meetings often take place on a teleconference platform. So this could be something like Zoom, which allows you to have a meeting via video with your colleagues. Now we'll just have a look at some of the key things you might see on your screen when you are on a particular conference platform. So we have, of course, the camera. You can turn your camera on and off, and this will allow people to see you. The camera captures an image of your face. We also have the microphone. Now, the microphone is what picks up the sound. It records the sound and passes it over to whoever else is on the call. We have software. Now, software is general. Some people might call these platforms a platform, but your company might use their own system for video calls, and that could be a software. And finally, we have a breakout room. So this is when you can separate the big meeting into smaller groups. So if you had a meeting of 10 people, and then you wanted people to speak in small groups of 2, you could create breakout rooms. And this is a small subsection of the call. Now, once you are, of course, on the platform and you know your way around, there are some things you might need to do. So first, we have scroll. So to scroll is to move the image on your computer up and down. So if perhaps you were sharing your screen, now to share your screen is to show the other participants on the meeting what is on your screen. If you were on sharing your screen and sharing a document, you might need to scroll up and down so that your colleagues can read the whole document. And sometimes you might not want people to be able to hear you, in which case you can mute yourself. Now, when you mute yourself, this means you stop your microphone from working and no one will be able to hear you. And kind of the opposite to mute is to activate. So you can activate your microphone if you had been on mute so that everyone can hear you again. You also might like to activate your camera. To activate is to make something turn on, to make it work. We also have to invite. So of course, when you are organizing an online meeting, you will need to make sure other people show up, make sure that other people come. So you can send them an invite, send them an invitation, maybe through a calendar platform, and maybe you'll also have an invite link, depending on the platform you are using. And finally, you might need to record a video call, record an online meeting, sorry. So when you record something, you convert it into a permanent form. You make a permanent copy of what happened. Perhaps you will want to watch the meeting again to remember what was said. But unfortunately, sometimes things don't always go smoothly during an online meeting. Perhaps some of you have funny stories from an online meeting that has gone a bit wrong. Do feel free to share them. But sometimes there are just technical issues. When you are dealing with technology, this can happen. In the same way that in life, sometimes things don't go perfectly as planned. So have you ever experienced when someone is speaking, you can see that their mouth is moving on the camera, and then you only hear what they said a few seconds later? Now, this is called a lag, when there is a delay between what is happening on one side of the call and when the person on the other side of the call is hearing it. That is a lag. And a lag can often be due to poor connection. So poor connection is when the network, the internet that you are using is not working properly. It's not strong enough to support the call. Maybe everyone in your house is on the Wi-Fi at the same time. That could cause poor connection. And maybe you have been in a situation where you can hear yourself speaking. So you speak if you're in a meeting, and then you hear what you just said again. And this is an echo. So you're hearing what you've said being echoed back to you. Something's happening with your microphone. Now, another thing that might disturb a meeting is background noise. So this is when something's happening in the background behind someone on a call, and the microphone is picking up that sound and everyone else can hear it. And this can disrupt a meeting if it's very loud in the background. And finally, just a couple of phrases. If you are having trouble hearing someone, maybe they are accidentally on mute and you want to let them know, you can say, I can't hear you. So I can't hear is the way to let them know that you cannot hear their sound. Benedict, I'm glad that there's no background noise. And similarly, for if you're unable to see them, if maybe their camera is not working, you can just say, I can't see you. Or maybe they went to share their screen, but it didn't work. You can say, I can't see your screen, to let them know that it wasn't working. So now we will just have a quick look at what we've learned so far. Please let me know in the chat, what do we call a gap between something happening on one end of the call and being seen on the other? Brilliant, Benedict, thank you. Indeed, so we call it a lag. Thank you, Christelle. Perfect. And now, what do we call it when you convert a call into a permanent form that can be listened to again? Thank you very much, Julien. Excellent. So record. You record a recording would be the noun of what you have afterwards. You record the call so that you can listen to it again. Now we're going to move on to the second part. We are going to look at staying organized. Now, of course, when you're at home, sometimes it's difficult to be as focused as you are if you are at the office or at your place of work, because maybe you're just not in the same environment that usually keeps you in the work mindset. So the first step towards making sure you stay on top of your tasks is making sure you have a suitable place to work in. So, of course, you want to have a space at home or wherever you are working, because, of course, you can remote work from anywhere. You can remote work from a cafe. Wherever you are remote working, you will want to have the workspace set up. So first we have a laptop stand. Now in the picture, you can see a laptop stand. So it can be sore, it can be painful on your neck to be looking down at a computer all day. Maybe you don't have a big computer like you have at the office at home. So you can buy a laptop stand, which will just raise up your laptop a little bit, make it higher. So this is better for your neck. Something else you might like to have is an ergonomic chair. So this is a chair which is designed to be comfortable for your back. Again, taking care of yourself is very important when you're working from home. Another thing you need to have is a desk lamp. Perhaps you are going to be working a bit later into the evening, or maybe the room you're working in doesn't have very much light. So a desk lamp is a small light that can go on your desk and just provide some extra light, which is good for your eyes as well. And finally, a standing desk. Some people have a standing desk at the office, but if you are at home, you might like to have one too. And this is a desk which is high enough that instead of sitting down on a chair, you stand up. And so now we'll also look at a couple of phrases used to manage a project. As I mentioned, managing people from afar can be tricky. So some phrases you can use to make sure you're keeping track of everyone are here. So perhaps you use a certain platform which allows you to assign a task. To assign, I'll write the word in a chat, means to tell someone, give something to someone. So you can assign a task and say, Cecilia, I have assigned you this task, you need to do it. And you might like to ask one of your employees or your team members to tick a task as completed. Now this means that they show that they have done the task that they were assigned. You might also add a new task. So this means that you have added something else to the list of things to do. And this helps keep people aware of what they need to do. And finally, we have check the, whatever it is, maybe check the calendar, check the task list every day. So if you are not constantly talking to people, sometimes you might be communicating what we call asynchronously. So this means not at the same time. I'll write that down as well. Asynchronously. Which means that it's not taking place at the same time, and you will need to get them to look at what you have written later than you wrote it. So you want to get in a habit of checking every day so that no one misses any information. So now a quick test. Can you tell me what is in each of these pictures? So you can just go from left to right, 1, 2, 3. Alexandre, it does look like Pixar, doesn't it? Very true. So Gary, very good. You almost got it. One thing to remember in English is that the adjective always goes first. So it is a desk lamp rather than a lamp desk, because desk here is qualifying what type of lamp it is. So it is a desk lamp, or we can call it the Pixar lamp. Number 2, thank you, Christelle, is a standing desk. Again, Benedict, we need to remember to put the adjective first. So the standing is qualifying the type of desk, and so it needs to go before the noun. And finally, ergonomic chair, perfect. That is what the third one is. So we have a desk lamp, a standing desk, and an ergonomic chair. So finally, we're going to have a look at managing team building online. So it's hard to get all of your team members working together smoothly, particularly if they have never met, because some people might have joined the company completely remotely. Maybe your company is only remote. No one has ever met each other. In which case, you need to build relationships right from the bottom and encourage great communication. So to start, we will look at how you can encourage good communication. Some different things you might use. So perhaps you are using a teleconference platform which has a chat function, or maybe you are using a document cloud which also has a chat function. A chat function is anything that allows you to communicate via a chat, so via instant messaging. messaging at the same time. We have a channel. Now, depending on what messaging or communication platform you use, maybe it'll be called something a bit different, but a channel is a way of organizing communication into different groups, so you can stay on different subjects. You could also control who is in what conversation if you have different channels of communication. Next, we have a dashboard. So a dashboard is also a word used in cars, but on a lot of different platforms nowadays, you will arrive on a dashboard which gives you an overview of all of the important information, all of maybe your conversations, the different channels. Perhaps people will have posted information to keep track of, but a dashboard will be a one view look at some important information. We also have a task board. Now, I mentioned this earlier, perhaps you use a particular platform to assign tasks each day, but a task board allows you to see all your tasks laid out again in one view and assign them. We also have attachments. So if you are communicating via email or even via another messaging platform, you might need to give supplementary information. So you need to add an attachment. If I sent you a message saying, oh, could you please just check this file? I've attached it below. I've sent it as an attachment. It might be a picture or a file. And finally, a notification. So, of course, you probably have notifications on your phone or on social media, but it's important if you're working throughout the day to keep your notifications on, of course, so that you know when someone is trying to contact you. But of course, you might need to turn them off if you're in a very important meeting. Like I have my notifications turned off now so that we're not disturbed during the webinar. And another thing to think about when you're managing a team is maintaining your employee well-being. Of course, people need to be healthy. People's health and happiness is extremely important. And you need to still take responsibility for this when you are working from home and when you're managing remotely. So here are some things you can or people can do, managers. Employees can also do this for themselves. They can encourage. So to encourage someone is to tell them that they can do something, help them try to do something, and let them know that it is okay to do something. You can also make a suggestion. If you suggest something, you're presenting it as an option. Something you might also do is try to avoid certain things. And if we avoid something, we try to stay away from it or try to stop it from happening. And finally, we have to make time for. Now, you might be very, very, very busy, but you can always make time. Now, to make time is to set aside some time. Maybe you'll put it in your calendar and allot some time. I'll put that word as well, allot, in the chat. Now, here we have the certain things you might be encouraging, suggesting, or avoiding. So breaks, of course, are very important, particularly if you are looking at a screen all day or sitting down all day. You will want to take a break. Now, a break is a moment where you stop doing what you are doing and go and do something else. Maybe you'll go and relax. Maybe you'll go and have lunch on your lunch break. It is to step away from something which you'll then come back to. Another thing that can be useful is a routine. Now, of course, if you're used to getting up and maybe going to work on the metro, that puts you in the mood to go to work. But when you're at home, you don't have that. So instead, you might like to do some yoga in the morning to start the day. A routine is about having certain things you do which keep you going through the day. Now, something we want to avoid is called burnout. Now, burnout is when you feel really, really, really tired or exhausted because you have been stressed or overworked for a long period of time. Now, this can happen in remote working particularly because it can be harder for managers to see how much work their employees are doing and maybe give them too much work. But it also can be difficult because when you're working from an office, you know when the workday is finished and you go home and you stop working. But when you're working from home, this is from an employee's perspective, it's very easy to just stay at your desk and work and work and work without taking any breaks or without finishing the day. And finally, another important thing is exercise. Now, exercise is physical movement. It's getting up and doing something. This is, of course, great for your body and will give you even more energy. So, of course, to get your team together, to have everyone getting on, you might like to organize some fun activities. They're not related to work particularly, but they're things you can do online. Because, of course, you can't just go for a drink with your friends or with your colleagues. You can't just go to the restaurant with your colleagues if you are working remotely. Perhaps they live in another country. So here are some things maybe you would suggest. An icebreaker. So an icebreaker is very general. This is just any activity that is going to break the ice. So this is obviously idiomatic here. And it's supposed to be about opening up communication, starting communication. When you meet new people, it might be a bit awkward. You don't really know each other. So you break the ice by starting maybe with a fun game. You might also like to do a quiz. So a quiz is when you pose a series of questions and someone else has to try and get the answers right. You might also like to do a virtual happy hour. I'm sure you all know what happy hour is in normal life. But it would just be a time for you to all get a drink, maybe, or your colleagues, and sit and chat on a video call. You could also do an escape room. This is a game which is you're able to play over a call over the internet, where you are given lots of clues, and you have to try to figure out how to escape from, get out of an imaginary room. And because you can pass the information back and forth, it's a good one to play remotely. It's a sort of puzzle game. And similarly, a murder mystery. This is another game where you'll get certain clues, and then you have to find an answer based on those clues. So these are just some suggestions that you might like to suggest if you are working remotely with a team. Now, finally, to test what we've just done. So what do we call exhaustion caused by working and being stressed for an extended time? Julien, you got there before I could even finish the answer. You are quite right. It is burnout. Now, can anyone remember what are some things managers and employees can do to try to avoid burnout? What can we do to try to avoid burnout? There aren't really right answers here. Maybe you have some suggestions from your own life. What do you usually do to avoid burnout? What do you do to keep your life balanced? Maybe you can share some suggestions with the everyone else in the webinar. Brilliant. So yes, Julien, with exercises, we would usually just say exercise if you're talking about exercise in general, just getting up and moving. But if you're talking about specific exercises, maybe you have hand exercises for keeping your hands fresh after typing, then you can say exercises as a countable noun with the S at the end. I don't know which one you meant. And we would usually say do some exercises. So do some exercises. Make some exercises would mean to be coming up with them, to be making them up, designing them. Yes, encourage breaks and a yoga routine. Christelle, that is a great suggestion. Do you do yoga? And Benedict, again, yoga. Yoga seems to be very popular. Playing games is a really nice way to avoid burnout, of course, because you're helping people to have some balance. They're having fun while they're also working. Great, Christelle. So it seems like you have really great suggestions. So you can go for a run. Exactly, that would be the phrasing we would usually use, go for a run. But a great suggestion, Gary. That's a good bit of exercise. I see you all have lots and lots of suggestions. You can continue writing them. Here were just some suggestions I wrote. Take breaks, make time for exercise, and develop a routine. Kim, amazing idea. Eating an ice cream is a really good way to avoid burnout. Make sure you are still enjoying life. And Sophie, work out, exactly. So doing some exercise. So I hope you are all never going to experience burnout, since you all have such great tactics for avoiding. Sandrine, we just need to say, listen to music. We need that preposition in there. Rest and let go. Perfect. So that brings us to the end of our webinar for today. Thank you all so much for your suggestions and for taking part. It's been great hearing about how you keep your remote working life balanced. Do let me know in the chat if you have any last questions. Do you have any final questions? I'll just give you a moment. Julien, so yours was what's asynchronously? So asynchronously is when you're doing something not at the same time. So asynchronous communication is maybe when I send you a message at 3 p.m. and you're not going to reply to it until 7 p.m. Maybe you're in a different time zone. And so it's communication that can happen not immediately at the same time. It means, yeah, so not happening at exactly the same time. You're welcome. So thank you all so much for coming. If you don't have any more questions, si ce webinaire vous a plu et que vous souhaitez approfondir votre pratique d'anglais, n'hésitez pas à faire une demande d'information sur notre site internet, pardon. Nous serons heureux de vous présenter nos formations en détail et même de vous proposer un test de niveau gratuit à l'oral avec un de nos professeurs. So thank you all so much for coming, and I will hopefully see you next time. Bye bye.